Alright guys, welcome to another channel episode. Remember, this is the channel where we talk all about how you don't need to be a CEO in order to have some impact on the world. And as you know, prior to our current challenge of learning algorithms, we were trying to get our TensorFlow certification. TensorFlow certification is something that Google has for developers to acquire and therefore showcase their skills in TensorFlow. And to be a TensorFlow developer, you can get certified, and then you can have Google backing you, saying they know how to use TensorFlow in order to be useful for your company. And so that was our past project, and it isn't until today that I'm able to come to you guys and say that I have finally passed the Google TensorFlow developer certification for TensorFlow, and I am extremely happy about that. If you guys have been following me on my journey, it took around 2 months plus a couple weeks in order to actually be able to take the test. And throughout that whole time, I was having a lot of fun learning TensorFlow and talking about it with you guys. So if you guys enjoyed that, let me know and write something below. A couple of you guys have already been talking about how you guys are using the notes that I've been providing in order to study, which is great because those notes are actually what I'm going to talk about today. Were so helpful for me for passing the exam. I'm going to go over all the resources I used and everything, but first let me get my iPad and show you guys everything. So first off, here we go with my iPad. We got my email saying that I finally passed the exam. It took me around almost 2+ weeks to take the exam because my computer broke, and so I had to get that fixed. But as you guys know, in the meantime, I started learning algorithms, and so the last week I actually didn't make a video on learning about algorithms because I was so involved with reviewing for this exam. And I'll let you guys know how I reviewed and everything in this video. In fact, this video I'm going to talk all about how you can study for the TensorFlow developer exam, and how you can, if you've used TensorFlow before, how you can get it in 2 weeks, and if you've never used TensorFlow before, how you can get it in 2 months, which is still extremely fast to get Google certified. So without further ado, let's go over. So you guys saw I got the certificate, so let's move over to Notion and continue learning. So as you guys know, so here I had a place where I had all the notes that Daniel, another YouTuber, had provided for us, and I took his notes and I improved upon it and made it more my own. His way of doing it was very immaculate, very intense, very exact. I did something a little bit more simple and to the point, so that when I wanted to get to work, I knew exactly where I was. He did the same thing, except he used just more resources, and so he needed more time and place in order to write it all down. But here we go. So on the top you see everything that I did, and on the bottom you see everything that he did. So let's go over what I did and then what he did. So this is the TensorFlow certification. These are my notes. Started February, and the date I got certified ended up being May 28th. It took a little bit longer than expected, again because I had some troubles with my computer, but I could have gotten it in 2 months, almost exactly, based on very slow, doing a couple of hours a week. So extremely doable if you're trying to get certified. TensorFlow, just watch my videos and you'll see it's possible for anyone. I'm just some random kid on the internet and I managed to do it, so you guys definitely have got it. These are my logs on what I did every week. Then I have down here my notes. So if you click that, you go to my notes. A lot of you guys have already been going to my notes. The notes are so important for passing the exam, extremely important. That's how I passed the exam. It's a great resource, and it is a great way. Notion is a great way to save some code that you can later reuse for the exam, and I'm going to talk all about that later on. Now we're getting to the part that Daniel worked on. So his notes, he had his log, his notes, his to-do, the resources, minimum requirements, the notes, the curriculum, very, very extra. I personally, so he did read Hands-On Machine Learning, which is a book that I've done a little bit of reading before when I was doing CNNs, but didn't read the whole thing. Watched first lectures of MIT. I only watched one lecture. Set up local machine with PyCharm. I did that. Funny enough, even though I did that during the exam, my GPU didn't even function. I'll let you guys know a way around that later on. What else did he do? TensorFlow in practice. That's exactly what I did. Read the TensorFlow Developer Certification Handbook. I did that before the exam as well. And set up curriculum with study materials. I did that. So basically, as you can see, we did something very, very similar. I did a little bit less than him and still got certified. So that's a great thing to know. So yeah, let's just go up and let me talk a little bit about what my resources were, what I think the best resources are, and kind of final notes on how to take the exam for those of you guys who are trying to take the exam. So doing a log like this was very useful because it reminded me what I learned what week, and it's a good reminder that to see your progress. So now I can see my progress even though I did this a very long time ago. And having a place to put your notes is also extremely beneficial because you can then, like I mentioned, use it later on. So let's say I'm doing something for TensorFlow and I'm doing time series, it's kind of confusing trying to get the whole windows going the right way. Well, I can just go back to my notes. I can go scroll down to time series. I can go to preparing features and labeling, and there we go. Time windows. I found it real time right here with you guys in literally 2 seconds whenever I have a problem. And that's why, these notes are so useful. So the main course and the main resource I used was Google, just Googling all my problems, and 2 was the Coursera course on TensorFlow. It's the one that Google recommends you take before the exam, and I would honestly say that if you guys want to pass, especially the first time, you guys have to go and do the course. If you've used TensorFlow before, I think you can go through the course in just 2 weeks if you really, do it full time. But if you're trying to do it, part time and also first time using TensorFlow and you're not really sure what you're doing, I'd say go through the course in 2 months like I did, and you'll still end up passing and feeling great while doing so. So yeah, so something really cool about these notes is because I have it separated by each week, something that you'll find out is that during the exam, they mention this, it's 5 questions, the exam is 5 questions, and for all intensive purposes, it's like 5 different models. I mean, who would have guessed it? I'm not going to go into any more specifics than that because that would be cheating, but you guys can guess what could be the 5 models that they're testing you on. Just take the course and you'll figure that out. But it's really important because the test is open book, and so they actually allow you to use Google while you're taking it, and the Google blog or TensorFlow blog, and that's actually a resource that I used while using the exam. And actually, let's actually move on to resources I used during the exam. So I already went over the resources I used while learning. I only used the course. I did watch those MIT videos, but I didn't finish them completely. I just saw the first one. And I had read 1 or 2 chapters on the hands-on machine learning book, but I definitely didn't do any exercises on that yet, but I definitely will. That book is really great. But for this exam, all you need to do is read the handbook, understand how to use PyCharm, and do this course. It's really all you need. Now, while taking the exam, let me tell you what you need. You need the TensorFlow blog. Just Google that, TensorFlow blog, where they talk all about the tutorials, how to use data sets that are preloaded on TensorFlow, which is something you do during the exam. And I also used my notes because I already have a lot of, pre-made simple models that I just know, hey, I need to do a convolutional neural network. Well, I know that first comes convolution 2D, then comes a max pooling, then comes a dropout if I need it, then comes a flatten, then comes a dense. I already know the model, but instead of coding it all at that moment, I can just, copy paste my simple model, copy paste those three lines, the convolution, the max, and the dropout again and again. And there you go, got a little bit more complicated model. I could do that again as well to get 3 times, which is basically, almost a standard model these days. Get a couple of dense layers and flatten and dense layers and you're done. So I have all of that code already here. So as you can see, bam, right here. So it's very simple to do if I get a question on, for example, the fashion MNIST, right? Which would be a very easy question because I already have most of it already done. Cool. And so that's one source, right? TensorFlow blog, my notes. And I guess the third source would be Google Colab. So like I mentioned before, even though I had tried to write PyCharm with TensorFlow on my computer with my GPU, which is what I waited almost a month to do because my screen broke and then I was having problems running TensorFlow. Once I actually got it running on my computer and I tested it right before the exam, once I started the exam, it downloads its own version of TensorFlow onto the exam. And when for the exam on PyCharm, it creates its own environment. And when I did that, it actually didn't end up working with my GPU at all. So my CPU was on fire. It wasn't working at all. And so my computer started lagging at one point while taking the exam. And so I had the idea that I heard other people use before, which is you can use Google Colab and run your model there, and then just copy paste your saved model, because you got to save every model. That's how you submit it. Save the model, copy paste it into the exam, and submit that. And that's one way of basically passing the exam without using only the resource of your computer. Not everyone has GPUs that work. In fact, I do have a GPU that worked, and it didn't even end up working for the exam. So if that is your case, if you're running this test on a laptop, you can use the free version of Google Colab to run all your models. All the models are simple enough to be run on a Google Colab as well for free. And you're able to run models within 20 minutes using Colab versus my computer, which would maybe take an hour or maybe take 30 minutes. I can run in less than 20 minutes on Google Colab, copy the saved model and the weights onto my exam on PyCharm, make sure the name is the same, the right name, and then I'll be able to completely submit and then see what my grade was. Now, they'll tell you this in the exam. Some tips on how I did the exam. Let me just put this away. Some tips on how I did the exam. So I already mentioned the resources I used, which were huge, right? But other than that, I think the biggest thing you can do was once you turn in a model, right, and you submit your model, it's going to give you a score, right? And once it gives you a score, actually, before it gives you a score, let's say you're running a model, you're doing number 3 out of 5, and then that number 3, you code it up and you run it. While it's running, right, and you're seeing what the epochs go by, open up number 4 and start working on number 4, because before you actually get to creating the TensorFlow model, you have to make sure you're able to shape the data into the right way in order to get into the model. As you know, for TensorFlow, you can get your data in many different ways. You can, get it from a zip file. You can get it from, pre-loaded data sets on TensorFlow. You can get, you can get your models. You can get pre-trained models that way. So your data is coming in at the top, and then it requires you to get it into the model. Then it requires you to build the model, save the model, and then that's how you submit. So while number 3 is running, you can run number 5, you can go to number 4, and you can start working on it and coding that, getting the data in, right? Once you get the data in, and that's something you can do, you can run it once, get the data in to your folders, and then start adding more and more code in order to shape your data, put it in the right folders, do everything you need to do before you get it into your TensorFlow model, then do the TensorFlow sequential model, do the model, save it, and then there you go. Something that I really enjoyed using was to make sure that you fix your learning rate and you make your learning rate the right thing. So I guess that's your first tip. While model number 3 is running, while you're running a model that takes 20 minutes, you can go on and you can code some at number 4. That helps you save time. I managed to do the exam in only 3 hours out of the 5 hours, and I got a perfect score on all my models. Now, another thing I mentioned is they give you a score on the model. This I learned from the handbook. It gives you 1 through 5, or 0 through 5. And actually, a lot of the models I first submitted, I got a 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 5. But by just tweaking my learning rate, I managed to get there. In fact, I don't think actually that I had to change my model at all in order to get the 5 out of 5. Oh, actually, that's a lie. In one of them, I had to change my model to a much better model in order to get the 5 out of 5, because I was only getting up to 3 out of 5 with my current model, and even after I ran it twice with different learning rates, it didn't work. But for most of the questions, the first model I used was the one that got me 5 out of 5, but what I had to change was the learning rate in order to get it to really learn basically the whole way, and really converge at the right answer, right? At the right accuracy. And for one of them, I started with a model. I don't want to go into too much detail, but for one of them, I started with a model, and it was just not the right model to use, and there was 3 different types of models I could have used. So I changed it to another one, ran it, and bam, 5 out of 5. Because I knew that my model was, I guess you can say, too dumb for something that was so complicated. So I changed it up to a little bit smarter of a model, and then I got it done. I got 5 out of 5. So I ended up getting perfect on that, which was awesome. So basically, from what I heard, I don't know if this is true, if you get 5 out of 5 on all of them, you'll probably pass. Granted, your code isn't absolutely wrong. Then if you get couple, you get 4s, that's okay. But if you get any 3s, chances of passing are starting to get really low. So yeah, that was it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys want any other information, just let me know. If you guys want anything other content, just let me know. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.